people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. In addition to what is an already action-packed weekend of fights in the UK, in the US, and Argentina, Mayerling Rivas, reigning WBA Super Bantamweight champion, will be traveling abroad in defense of her WBA title. Opposite the ring, the hard-punching Argentinian slugger, Nazarena Romero.
This fight is ahead of schedule.
I anticipated that at some point, Nazarena Romero would challenge Mayerling Rivas for that WBA title, but I didn't think it would happen this soon.
I figured it might happen towards the end of this year or early next year in the first quarter, but it's here, and it's happening this weekend.
And this is going to be a war. This is going to be a shootout between two of the bigger punchers in the women's super bantamweight division. Mayerling Rivas sports professional record of 17 wins with 4 losses, 2 draws.
11 knockouts.
To Nazarena Romero's unblemished record of 13 wins with no losses, no draws, 7 knockouts. Even though Nazarena Romero has less knockouts on paper than Mayerling, I'd wager that she's a bigger puncher, punch for punch, than Mayerling Rivas.
A veteran of 23 professional contests, having never been stopped in 23 professional bouts.
Experience is definitely on the side of the champion, even if time isn't. Mayerling Rivas is approximately 7 years older than Nazarena Romero. Mayerling is 35, whereas Nazarena is a fresh and fit 28.
And one of the more violent punchers in today's super bantamweight division. This title fight is one of 2 super bantamweight title fights going down this weekend. There's Rivas versus Romero and Scottney versus Johnson.
Ellie Scottney and Nazarena Romero, 2 of Ring IQ's top prospects to watch,
albeit for very different reasons.
Nazarena Romero has seen action at least 2 times within the last 12 months. She was in action late last year in November, scored a first-round TKO stoppage, and she was in action again earlier this year in April, a third round
TKO stoppage. She's a hard puncher.
And she has seen action in the last 12 months. The same cannot be said for the champion Mayerling Rivas. The last time she saw action was a year to the date of the fight. June of last year, opposite the ring, Karina Fernandez.
Why didn't Matchroom get her a fight in between now and then?
I'm not completely sure, but she could have used one, because opposite the ring, a physical fighter and a hard puncher, your timing and your own sharpness, your own accuracy, it needs to be on point. This weekend, Mayerling Rivas is going to be opposite the ring, a fighter that's going to push the pace.
As stated, punch for punch, I feel like Nazarena Romero is a harder puncher than Mayerling Rivas. These are both decent-sized punchers, they both are, but I think there's more on Nazarena's shots.
A lot more. You could argue that perhaps Nazarena Romero compromises defense for offense,
whereas Mayerling, she's a little bit more nuanced. What comes with that many fights and that much experience, she's a more put-together fighter.
Sets up her punches more and works off the jab more, whereas Nazarena, she just lets the fists fly. She believes in her power.
She likes to trade, likes to get into exchanges.
She's a pressure fighter, that's what they do, whereas Mayerling, she's more boxer-puncher than just puncher. She's got the right style for the job, but there are a few things working against her. That she's older than Nazarena Romero, and she's not as active.
She's a bit leaky in the pocket. Her defense is,
she can be caught.
She has been caught by lesser punchers, lesser fighters than Nazarena Romero.
It ranged to inside. I actually favor the younger, fresher fighter in Nazarena Romero because it's a varying attack. Punches to the head, punches to the body. This is a fighter that's just trying to hit you. She doesn't care where. If she can't nail you upstairs,
She'll go downstairs.
downstairs is closed, she'll go back upstairs.
She's not going to stop.
In the heat of the exchange, I favor Nazarena Romero. Her combinations, her power, her explosiveness. To the eye, she seems a sharper fighter. Sharper movements than what you get from Ma Yerlin. That could be Father Time catching up to her. She is 35 years old, after all.
It's very hard to imagine that she's going to go 10 rounds with Nazarena Romero and something hard isn't going to get in. Something hard isn't going to get through. As prolific a puncher as Nazarena Romero is.
It's hard to imagine. It's a situation to where either Ma Yerlin Rivas is going to be drawn into a war, drawn into an exchange, or she may end up giving up rounds, moving lateral, circling away from the action, and making Nazarena appear the busier fighter in the fight, the ring general. Don't forget that this is going down in Argentina. That's Nazarena's neck of the woods.
She'll have home field advantage.
To the eye, she's already a more prolific puncher and a more powerful puncher, a more explosive fighter than today's Ma Yerlin Rivas. It doesn't favor her at all.
Fighting a physical fighter like this, a rough and tumble fighter like this off a year layoff.
Less than ideal in the other fighter's home turf, the other fighter's neck of the woods. I'm sorry to say that I think the title's going to change hands this weekend. I think Nazarena Romero is going to beat Ma Yerlin Rivas, beat her on points.
On activity.
Her work rate alone can make her appear the much busier fighter in the eyes of the judges that in all likelihood are going to be looking for rounds to give her because she's the home fighter.
I feel like the eye-catching shots and the shots with mustard on them are going to be coming from Nazarena Romero. This is a big step up for her, but I think she's ready for it.
I don't think she's going to stop Ma Yerlin. Ma Yerlin has enough experience to survive, to hear the final bell, but I do think she's going to get outworked. Could be close, could be tight.
Hard to separate them at times, but when the final bell sounds, I believe it's going to be Nazarena Romero with her hand raised.
She's a fucking animal.
She doesn't shy away from the exchange. It's what she wants. It's where she excels.
She puts the whole Argentina in every single punch, in every single shot. One of the more violent punchers and violent unbeaten up-and-comers in today's super bantamweight division. I like Nazarena Romero to pry the WBA title away from Ma Yerlin Rivas this weekend in Argentina. Nazarena is the pick. Nazarena on points. Men's heavyweight news. Eddie Hearn fires back at Team Fury. They are desperate. No Saudi offer and no fight.
For those of you that caught wind of Frank Warren's tirade against Eddie Hearn and against Anthony Joshua, those of you that might have caught my previous video on it.
It's very obvious that Frank Warren was hot in the collar. He was bothered. But why? Why should he be bothered?
What the hell's he so mad about?
Eddie Hearn, never one to remain quiet for too long, fired right back at Warren and took a swipe at Fury's co-promoter, top-ranked CEO Bob Arum. What Frank Warren does is just completely ruin any chance of the fight getting made, Hearn said. Bob Arum, Warren, and even my old man, Barry Hearn, ban them from interviews. They've just lost the plot and say crazy things. Just go on a holiday. It's not worth the stress for you. It looks so desperate. They are desperate. They have no offer from Saudi Arabia, and they have no fight.
You see what Eddie Hearn said? That what Frank Warren does is just completely ruin any chance of the fight getting made.
A fight with Anthony Joshua because of how Frank Warren approaches the situation with schoolyard tactics and name-calling, attempting to cultivate public pressure in his own fighter's favor, but it's really not working.
No.
And I think that's a big part of the reason why Frank was hot in the collar.
The pressure is on.
And all I saw was, I forged the contract. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? These, and I really don't mean this disrespectfully, because my old man's one of them, right? These older boys, they've got to go and have a sit down. Because what Frank Warren does is just completely ruins any chance of the fight getting made. Barry Hearn, I put him in the same. Frank Warren, Bob Arum, just go. Just go on holiday. Do you know what I mean? It's time now. It's not worth the stress for you. I mean, it looked so desperate. By the way, I'm well up for talking about the Tyson Fury fight in September, but we have our plan for August and December. But interviews like that, do you think they're going to help? I mean, it's like, Anthony Joshua, you're a coward, you're a stop pussy, and like, what? You've absolutely lost your mind. What are you doing? But what we won't get into is this, fucking sign a contract, you pussies. Fucking, what's that? I'll forge the contract. What are you talking about?
Fanny merchants.
Sorry?
Fanny merchants.
Fanny merchants. This is the level you're dealing at. We're getting called fanny merchants, right?
This is all due to a miscalculation on Team Fury's part. They don't have any intention of fighting Usyk in Saudi Arabia, I don't think. And what they hoped to do was swap out one big fight with another, an Anthony Joshua fight. They thought they could cultivate public support by applying public pressure on Anthony to take the fight. But at this point, people are just tired of it.
It needs to be said that just because Frank Warren and Tyson Fury start calling people out,
Irrespective of what engagements and what plans they might have, that's not the cue to drop everything and go back into negotiations with a guy that might end up wasting your time, because he has in the past. Moreover, how can Frank Warren lambast Anthony Joshua for fighting Dillian White for a second time when he had Tyson Fury fighting Derek Chisora for a third?
one pointless rematch deserves another, right, Frank?
With the difference being that Derek Chisora fight, that pointless endeavor, that was intended to be a stay busy fight en route to an Usyk fight. Now what you're trying to do is shift the focus away from the Usyk fight that you were supposed to have, back to a Joshua fight.
Why?
Why are you chasing around a guy with 3 losses and no alphabet titles?
Why?
Why are you so vehemently demanding that he give your fighter the time of day? From the looks of it, it looks like Anthony's got more leverage here than you do.
It looks like you need him more than he needs you, even though you're the unbeaten fighter, you're the unbeaten champion.
Why are you having such a hard time scheduling a keep busy fight, a stay busy fight, en route to an Usyk fight? Maybe it's because it's not en route to Usyk.
Nope.
Maybe it's because you're not looking to stay busy.
Nope.
You're not looking for a stay busy fight. You're looking for an alternative.
Because you don't want the Usyk fight. Now, the story now is that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have officially received an offer, a proposal, to do the Joshua versus Wilder fight.
That news broke earlier today, and I'm going to assume that a similar proposal, a similar offer, may have already gone out to Frank Warren and George Warren.
They're just keeping a lid on it because they know how it looks.
Know how it sounds. They don't have as much money to play, as much money to pay, as the people at Skills Challenge, the people over there in Saudi. You can't substitute what they offer with money in the UK, money at Wembley. Fiscally, there's no reason to not take them up on their offer. This is prize fighting after all, and they are offering the biggest prize.
A bigger prize than Frank can give you.
You don't have Anthony Joshua to use as a safety net because he stands to gain a very big prize in Saudi of his own, and he's not going to put that on hold. He's not going to drop everything for you. Why would he?
Doesn't make sense.
The only way to make sense of it is that both Frank Warren and Tyson Fury have painted themselves into a corner to where they don't want to take the Usyk fight, but they don't have an alternative. That's why Frank is hot in the collar.
Because he knows that.
If December comes and goes, and he doesn't fight Alexander Usyk, but he doesn't have an alternative, what's the explanation going to be, and what are people going to call it?
Gonna call it a fucking duck.
Because that's what it would be. A fucking duck. Instead of focusing on Usyk, you're focusing on a guy that he beat 2 times.
Why?
Your ability or inability to get a deal done with Alexander Usyk is between you and Team Usyk.
Between you two teams, why are you dragging Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn into this?
Things could get really ugly for Tyson Fury if December comes and goes and he doesn't fight Alexander Usyk, because it'll become that much more obvious that this whole time he never had any intention of fighting that man. The only silver lining, the only saving grace for both Frank Warren and Tyson Fury to perhaps land an Anthony Joshua fight is that Deontay Wilder, not but an hour or so ago, stated on PFL that he has received an offer to fight Francis Ngannou in a crossover fight. And this is not the first that we've heard of this. This is not the first we've heard of Francis Ngannou try his hand at boxing.
Tyson Fury's supposed to be in the running for a crossover fight with Francis as well.
Deontay Wilder made an appearance on a PFL event that took place earlier today and stated in plain English that there's an offer on the table to fight Francis. Seems to be a 2-fight deal, one fight in a boxing ring and the other in the octagon.
The virtue of fighting Francis is that you're fighting a novice. You're not fighting a boxer, an Olympian like yourself. You're not fighting a guy like Anthony Joshua.
There's no pressure, and rest assured that a fight between Francis and Deontay does well at the box office, very well. Commercially, it's
huge.
The only caveat is, if you decide to fight Francis Ngannou instead of Anthony Joshua, that's a 2-fight engagement, which rules out a Joshua fight for the near future. And to a lot of people, that's a duck. If you choose to fight an MMA fighter instead of your transatlantic rival, you can't keep painting the picture that Joshua didn't want to fight you. So far, you're the one that's turning down all the offers.
Yeah.
You're the one that's walking away from the fight.
Yeah.
That's the caveat. I'm to assume that Deontay Wilder being in attendance for a PFL event means he's fielding offers from the PFL, as the PFL very recently signed Francis Ngannou. He's not set to make his PFL debut until next year, because the story is he's entertaining a boxing match for this year.
Could that boxing match end up being a crossover Deontay Wilder versus Francis Ngannou fight?
Now, Deontay Wilder is not the poster child for technique in his given sport, but he still is a better boxer than Francis Ngannou. So if Francis wants to do this, it's little more than just a cash grab, not dissimilar from what we saw with the Maymack fight, Mayweather versus McGregor.
It's not a serious crossover. It's not a serious endeavor into the sport of boxing. It's a one-off, it's a cash grab, it's a circus fight.
What could be a two-fight engagement that would rule out Deontay Wilder as a potential opponent for Anthony Joshua, at least in the near and immediate future, and that would, in effect, open the door for Fury versus Joshua to resume as a conversation. That's if Deontay Wilder goes this route, and at 38,
He might.
Now, because Francis Ngannou inked a pact with the PFL, and because Deontay Wilder's relationship with the PBC and Showtime is murky right now, we don't know where they are, if they're anywhere.
Right.
I'm going to assume that if Wilder ends up fighting Francis Ngannou in a crossover fight, it's going to be carried by ESPN, with no involvement from the PBC or Showtime.
The best money for Deontay Wilder right now is not on PBC and Showtime. They don't have anything else to offer him.
Short of an Andy Ruiz fight, which pales in comparison to what he could make fighting Francis or fighting Anthony. Though if he doesn't fight Anthony, and that fight never materializes, Deontay Wilder will be solely responsible, held.
Be held responsible because the money's right, the money's there.
The money was always there to fight Anthony Joshua. The Anthony Joshua fight was always the biggest fight that Deontay Wilder could have, but on more than one occasion, he rejected offers to do it.
They're both huge fights, if I'm being honest.
Ngannou, Joshua, but only one of those fights has a backstory.
Yeah.
Only one of those guys has history with Deontay.
It's up to him what he wants to do. And at this age, maybe he doesn't want to take risks anymore.
Yeah, but the Francis Ngannou fight might require him to fight in a different discipline. In the octagon, though, at the same time, if he were to lose in the octagon, who could hold it against him?
We all know he's not an MMA fighter.
If he goes ahead and does that, then perhaps talks will resume for a Fury versus Joshua fight, though Frank Warren, he's going to want to be in control, and that in and of itself is a problem. They're offering Anthony Joshua right here and right now 40% of a Fury fight.
Pales in comparison to what the Saudis would pay to do it.
Even in that situation, I think Anthony Joshua shouldn't give them the time of day. I think Anthony should tell them to take their 40% and shove it up their ass.
Why?
Because they're just using him to avoid Alexander Usyk. That's why, because I still want to see Undisputed, and I'm not letting Fury off the hook.
You guys shouldn't either.
Even if things don't work out between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, Anthony should use that time to rebuild himself.
Fury really should be fighting Usyk.
There's no excuse not to.